A fiery confrontation exploded during a Senate hearing after Ron Johnson demanded an apology from CIA Director John Ratcliffe over the agency's response to COVID origins investigations. What began as questions about alleged pressure inside the CIA quickly turned into a blistering attack on what Johnson called deep state, obstruction, government secrecy, and years of agencies stonewalling congressional oversight. And when Johnson accused federal agencies of giving Congress the big middle finger, the room went completely silent.
We're going to conclude pretty quickly. I'm going to give Senator Johnson another chance if you have another question.
I've got a quick question, then I want to go someplace else. In September 2023, we apparently had a CIA whistleblower come forward, and there are news articles written about this, that 6 of the 7 analysts to describe this were bribed to change their analysis. Is that true?
No. So there's some clarifications on that. What is true, and I thank you for bringing up this question, Senator Johnson, because this is one of the things I wanted to make sure the record was corrected. So, and if I have just a few minutes here to sort of talk through this, there was new information that came out in 2022, and it forced the community to try and conduct a relook. There were 10 CIA scientists, I'm talking from the CIA side now, not on the next side, 10 CIA scientists that were said, why don't you go ahead and do a COVID relook? On that team, there were 7 SMEs, subject matter experts, technical experts with lab experience, medical experience, and so they began their relook. And by the time they wrote their paper, they wrote a paper and they said, we're assessing this as a lab leak. 8 of the 10, according to multiple whistleblowers, 8 of the 10 were definitely leaning in on lab leak. They sent that paper, that draft paper, up to the Weapons and Counterproliferation Center front office and said, take a look. And magically, a new report shows up that allegedly contradicted the information that had come in earlier that year. The multiple people we spoke to said, yeah, it didn't really contradict it. But they were told, go back to the drawing board and do a reassessment. So the interagency got involved, they were having discussions, so they go back to the drawing board. And by the time 2023 rolls around, they've got their answer. They say, 6 of the 7 technical people on that team. So there's 10 people on the team, 6 of the 7 technical experts say, yep, we still think it's a lab leak. We still think it's a lab leak, and they were sticking to their guns. Management changed the analytic line. They changed the conclusion to a non-consensus call. Actually, worse than that, they said that the exact words were, I don't want to get this wrong. Excuse me. We may never precisely know the origin of SARS-CoV-2. Precisely. Precisely is not a term analysts use. They use like low confidence, medium confidence, yes, no. Precisely is a word you use when you want to deliberately end discussion. Because do you know how many resources we need to precisely know the origin of SARS-CoV-2?
So again, I want the chairman to indulge me a little bit more here. There's no bribes paid. This was just a management decision. They overruled what the, okay.
But the financial piece definitely needs to be looked into because they did receive an EPA. They got it. It's $1,500.
Okay, so it may be true then.
No. Let me be very clear. There were no bribes. They received an exceptional performance award. They were upset with it, and it was not a bribe. But what I will say,
okay,
the people who
they were rewarded for
their work. They didn't know they were going to get it.
Okay,
they were not.
I got you. Okay, I got you. And I understand the distinction. 1 point and 1 question. Just received this from Liz Lyon, the CIA Director of Public Affairs. The committee acted in bad faith by subpoenaing an agency officer for testimony today without notifying CIA. Despite having already obtained closed-door testimony from the individual previously, the witness testifying today is not appearing as a whistleblower in pursuit of the truth, but instead in response to the subpoena issued by Chairman Paul. This proceeding amounts to nothing more than a dishonest political theater masquerading as a congressional hearing, as the CIA has already assessed COVID-19 most likely originated from the lab leak, and efforts to undermine that conclusion are disingenuous. I'm calling on CIA Director Ratcliffe and this person to apologize to Chairman Paul and this committee. This is not political theater. I have years and years and years of built-up frustration of agencies like the CIA, Department of Justice, the FBI, HHS, snubbing our oversight, giving us the big middle finger. And that really leads me into my question. You talked about how proud you were. Okay, I can imagine that. My belief is I'd say most people serving in government, all these agencies, are doing good work. They're patriots. Why aren't there more people like you I mean, you saw Senator Hawley's, the five-page snub, the five-page middle finger saying, any and all, this is it. And people inside the agencies know that's not the truth. They know that is a big, fat lie. What happens inside the agency that people, good Americans, patriotic Americans, people who believe in democracy, witness that and realize the agency they're working for is lying bold-face to legitimate congressional oversight, legitimate congressional investigations to the American people? What is causing this?
Two answers. One, we need more leaders like Director Gabbard, who pulls together a task force of people to actually pursue this, despite the difficulty in wrangling agencies to do the right thing. I think the second thing I'll say is it's a minority of officers. I mean, most of the people joining the CIA are barrel-chested freedom fighters. Like, they're out there wanting to do the right thing. As you matriculate upwards into the bureaucracy, I just think that it gets easier and easier to find people who are more willing to get along. And you know, if we want to link this back to COVID, you had a bunch of refuseniks out there that said no, and they were trying to push these people out. And what you really need in these organizations are, you know, you can't have the whole organization saying no to everything because nothing gets done. But you got to retain the people who are sometimes a little more difficult to deal with, more willing to say no over and over. And I think we've created a milquetoast bureaucracy. You know, when I first joined the agency, the chiefs of offices had a lot of power, you know, and then modernization happened, and they watered everything down, and the accountability piece has to be there. Otherwise, this is just going to keep happening.
Well, again, I appreciate you coming forward. Again, I'm calling on Director Ratcliffe and that communications person. This committee, this chairman needs an apology. This is not political theater. This is serious oversight work. This is what the American people need to see. And I just wish our Democrat colleagues had any level of curiosity what's happening inside the deep state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This hearing captured something much bigger than just another debate over COVID origins. It exposed the deep mistrust that still exists between parts of Congress and America's intelligence agencies years after the pandemic began. At the center of the clash was renewed scrutiny over the CIA's internal analysis into whether COVID-19 originated from a lab leak or natural transmission. According to testimony discussed during the hearing, several CIA analysts reportedly leaned toward the lab leak theory during an internal reassessment. But the controversy exploded after claims surfaced that management altered the final analytic conclusion. Now, to be clear, the witness rejected accusations that analysts were literally bribed. Instead, the testimony focused on performance awards that some employees received after the reassessment process. Still, Ron Johnson argued that the American people deserve answers about whether political pressure influenced intelligence conclusions during one of the most consequential public health crises in modern history. Johnson's frustration boiled over when he read a statement from the CIA criticizing the hearing itself as political theater. That's the moment the hearing transformed from a policy discussion into a full-scale institutional confrontation. Johnson didn't just defend the hearing. He demanded an apology. And the bigger point he was making is one many voters across the political spectrum increasingly share: whether federal agencies are truly transparent and accountable to elected oversight. The senator accused agencies like the CIA, FBI, DOJ, and HHS of repeatedly obstructing congressional investigations and withholding information from lawmakers. In his view, this wasn't just about COVID anymore. It was about whether unelected bureaucracies have become too insulated from accountability. What made the exchange especially powerful was the witness's response about internal agency culture. He argued that many rank-and-file intelligence officers are patriotic and genuinely trying to do the right thing, but that as people rise higher into bureaucratic leadership structures, there's increasing pressure to conform, avoid conflict, and protect institutions instead of challenging them. That line is politically explosive because it taps directly into a growing debate in American politics over what critics call the deep state, the idea that permanent government institutions can sometimes resist transparency or even shape policy independent of elected leadership. Supporters of the intelligence community would strongly reject that characterization and argue these agencies protect national security under incredibly difficult circumstances.